Let's now get an Iranian-Australian perspective on the weekend's events, and I'm joined on the desk by Dr Saba Vasefi, who's an Iranian-Australian academic with the Sydney University. Good to speak to you again, Saba. We were going to talk to you about some of these issues anyway, but it turns out that over the weekend it looks like the regime is close to falling. Certainly the Ayatollah is dead. What's your reaction been?
I was elated like million Iranians, and to see chief sponsor of terror is eliminated. And I think when a serial killer cannot be restrained, I think elimination is one element that we can prevent further murder and killing, like what the Australian police did in Bondi Beach when they killed the terrorists. So I celebrated, and I think this is a legitimate right for Iranians who have been persecuted for over decades to celebrate the butcher of Iranians. And something which is critical in the West that is more and more become visible these days is there are some groups and entities that they are using strategies like what the regime was using in order to silence Iranians. Sometimes they use the stigma of Islamophobia to Iranians in order to silence them, while Iran is a very diverse country with different religion, different belief, and I think they brush the reality under the carpet, and sometimes they are pasteurizing the reality rather than calling the real name. What is happening in Iran is the impact and consequence of radical Islamism and fundamentalism. And fundamentalism in any form and shape is destructive and dangerous.
You live in fear of the Iranian regime here in Australia. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I know that our security agencies help you protect yourself here. Do you hope that in coming days and weeks that load will be lifted from your shoulders?
I think despite the butcher of Iranians is eliminated, however, IRGC is out there. We need global solidarity to decapitate them. And I think, for example, Australia had the opportunity. ASIO assessment showed that the IRGC and Iranian ambassador in Australia had some kind of involvement in terrorist attack, and Australian domestic law had that sort of opportunity to prosecute them.
They expelled the ambassador, but there's been no prosecution.
Now, and now they have the ability to call their allies to demand the release of all the prisoners.
I wanted to go to that. We haven't got much time, but one of the cases we were going to talk to you about today, before we knew that war would break out on the weekend, was some of the protesters in jail in Iran now, facing what you say are trumped-up charges, possible death penalties. You must be hoping now that if the regime could fall in coming days, those people will be set free and not have to face that kangaroo court.
Yeah, but as I said, still they are funded, IRGC is funded, and the regime is armed. So we need to decapitate the IRGC.
Do you think it will fall then? You sound like you're not very optimistic about the regime falling in coming days. Some people tell us that it's a fait accompli.
Yeah, it's a process. I don't think so it happened abruptly. We need more work, and we need global solidarity to demand that sort of decapitation of IRGC. Yeah. And this is not the solution that these groups, and these groups in the West, I think they are trying to exploit the Iranian struggle for their ideological and political advantages, in order to, rather than speaking up about the extermination of over 30,000 innocent, unarmed people, including children. And the fact is, at the moment, there are children on death row as a result of their contribution to the protest. But
people sitting on death row now may be hearing the bombs coming down and hoping that it could signal freedom for them soon.
And
Saba,
now,
I'm going to have to leave it there, sorry. Well, I'll try and have you back in coming days as we see events unfold. I really appreciate it.